Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and learn how to actually design a food safety plan, or FSP. If you operate any kind of food service, from a bustling local restaurant to a massive catering operation, you already know keeping your customers safe is the absolute name of the game, right? But honestly, hope and good intentions just aren't enough. You need a rock-solid, meticulously designed architecture of safety.
You know, when we hear about those massive food poisoning outbreaks on the news, it's so easy to chalk them up to bad luck or just mysterious accidents. But what truly causes foodborne illnesses? Well, the reality is, rather than being these random, unpredictable events, most of them actually stem from highly preventable mishandling during prep or storage. And hey, because these outbreaks stem from procedural gaps, that means we have the power to build a rigorous, systematic defense against them.
To stop foodborne illness in its tracks, we rely on a food safety plan. Think of this as your proactive architectural blueprint. It is directly based on the world-renowned HACCP system, pronounced HACCP, which stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. So instead of just crossing our fingers and waiting for something to go wrong, this plan is designed to actively anticipate, identify, and prevent safety problems at every single stage of production.
So here is our game plan for today. We're going to look at why FSPs matter, list the 6 core FSP elements, enumerate the stages of development, really understand hazards and control limits, and finally, assess the basic requirements you need for a solid foundation.
First up, Section 1. Why FSPs matter and building that proactive defense.
Okay, so the old school way of running a kitchen was largely reactive. You'd basically wait for a customer complaint, or worse, someone actually getting sick, before scrambling to fix your kitchen procedures. A classical food safety plan completely flips that script. It forces you to stop being reactive and start being proactively defensive. You are literally anticipating every potential hazard before the food even arrives at your receiving dock.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 6 core FSP elements you need to build this blueprint.
Let's list the elements of a food safety plan, because these are your unbreakable pillars. You've got to list your hazards, identify preventative limits, establish monitoring procedures, figure out corrective actions, keep meticulous records, and constantly check and review. Together, they create this continuous closed loop. You are always spotting threats, setting the rules, watching those limits, and fixing things the absolute second they start to drift out of bounds.
All right, Section 3. The 3 stages of development for building your FSP.
Let's enumerate the different stages in actually putting this together, because you can't just write a massive safety manual overnight and expect your kitchen to adapt. Stage 1 is all about planning. You start by getting a knowledgeable coordinator and rolling changes out to your staff in slow phases to build buy-in and reduce anxiety. Stage 2 is drawing a literal flow diagram of your operation. And then finally, in Stage 3, you develop the plan by applying those 6 core elements we just talked about right onto your specific diagram.
Stage 2 is actually really interesting because you visually map out the physical journey of your food. From the supplier to the loading dock, into the walk-in, to the prep station, the stove, the hot hold, and finally the plate. By tracing that path, you lock down every single transfer point and pinpoint exactly where things could potentially go sideways.
Section 4. Hazards and control limits, where we set our boundaries.
We really need to understand the preventative measures and control limits here. Imagine your kitchen as a fortress, right? Every room has a specific threat. Say, the hazard is a dangerous virus lurking in raw seafood, like the Norwalk-like virus. To fight it, we don't just tell the staff, hey, keep it cold. We set a strict measurable control limit, like keeping cold storage strictly at 4 degrees Celsius or below, period. It leaves absolutely zero room for guesswork.
And here is what that methodology looks like in action. You name the step, like cooking. You identify the hazard, like surviving food poisoning bacteria. Then you establish an immediate corrective action. If that food isn't hot enough, the action is incredibly clear. You just continue cooking until the core temperature hits 75 degrees Celsius for at least 30 seconds. No debate, just action.
Speaking of temperatures, 4 degrees Celsius is your absolute magic number for cold storage. This limit is strictly non-negotiable. If a supplier rolls up and their delivery truck is temping warmer than 4 degrees, your corrective action is incredibly simple and highly effective. You outright reject the delivery. You literally stop the hazard before it even crosses your threshold.
Moving past receiving, cooling cooked food down is another massive hazard zone where bacteria just love to multiply. So your blueprint has to demand rapid cooling through that danger zone. The FSP rule dictates a strict two-step drop. You must cool the food from 60 degrees down to 20 degrees within a strict 2 hours, and then force it down to 4 degrees or below in the next 4 hours. Oh, and you do this using shallow containers under 5 centimeters high so the heat can escape quickly.
Finally, Section 5. Let's assess the basic requirements that make up your FSP foundation.
Look, if your basic cleaning isn't procedural, your advanced, fancy HACCP plan is going to completely fail. Take utensil cleaning. This simple, rigid, 6-step process ensures you aren't just moving dirt around, but actually sanitizing. You scrape, rinse, wash with detergent, rinse again, sanitize, and, this is super important, let it air dry. Using a towel just introduces new bacteria right back onto the surface, so air drying is an absolute must.
Even your storage logistics matter deeply to this foundation. You might not think of a tape measure as a food safety tool, but enforcing specific distance rules, like keeping everything 30 centimeters off the floor and 15 centimeters away from walls, is a total game changer. It instantly wipes out hiding spots for pests and lets your team easily spot any signs of an infestation.
Then, of course, there's the human element. Your staff is literally your first line of defense, which is why strict personal hygiene protocols are non-negotiable basic requirements. We're talking rubbing hands with soap for a full 20 seconds. If someone has a cut, they have to cover it not just with any bandage, but with a highly visible, bright-colored, waterproof strip so you'd spot it instantly if it fell off. And if a worker feels sick with the bug, they report it and stop working immediately.
You even have to meticulously manage what you throw away. Waste bins can't just be an afterthought. They must be easily distinguishable from your food containers, and you have to treat them with the exact same daily sanitation protocols as your prep surfaces. Then, you place them upside down to drain overnight so you completely eliminate any lingering risk of cross-contamination.
Ultimately, a food safety plan is really just a stack of paper until you and your team actually put it into practice. You have to weave these core elements, control limits, and hygiene requirements into the very culture of your operation. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought to chew on for your own kitchens. If an inspector walked in right this second, would they see a random, reactive routine, or would they see a meticulously designed, actively managed blueprint for food safety? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and stay safe out there.